Hi, my name is Ed Epperson. I'm 80 years old and I have Parkinson's disease. So when you see my hand shaking, that's the cause of it. And the reason we're getting together today to talk about relationships is I was impacted by Dale Carnegie back in the 50s. And he said, a stranger is just a friend that you haven't met yet. And I thought, that really sounds good. A stranger is just a friend that you haven't met yet. So I have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of friends because I believe that that's true. So we're getting together today to acknowledge each other and to acknowledge the people that have gone before us and the people that have come after us to the best of our ability to just share what it means to be human. So I've had a really great life, and I'm not afraid to die because I've already done everything that I think was really important to me. And I just really am thankful to my friends and my lovers and my enemies for the great life I've had. So does anyone have anything they want to share about what it means to have met me? I'll be leaving fairly soon, and I think it would be nice, like in Tuesdays with Maury, if people can feel complete in their relationship with me.
I'd like to go, yeah. I'd like to just have some time to just be with you for a second or
Hi, Spencer.
two. Yeah.
I remember you and Gail and a Labrador, I believe, a dog or some sort.
I had a couple of Labradors. So I met Ed right after I moved to Austin. My brother Jeff told me about ecstatic dance. And I went to ecstatic dance and loved it. And I was there this morning, so I've been doing that for 25 years. Going to ecstatic dance, that's my outlet, my church on Sunday mornings. So I remember watching Ed dance, and shall I do your dance?
Yeah.
Okay, so here's Ed's dance. You're gonna have to. Okay, so Ed dances like this.
Yes.
It is just like it's like just the coolest little motion you can imagine, you know?
That was pretty spot on.
Yeah.
In the last
And so-
decade, I've got my hands up over my head.
Oh, over your head, okay. So, I like to observe people's dances, and then I like to mimic them when I'm on the dance floor. And so, I would go up next to you and do your dance next to you. They had announcements, and I announced that I was a tennis player, and I was looking for tennis people to play tennis with. And so Ed came over and announced that he was a tennis player and he would like to play with me. And then he took me out on the tennis court and thrashed me. 20 years older than me, and just beat the crap out of me. But he taught me so many amazing things. So, and it was great because at that time I could walk, I could see the tennis courts from where I was living. And so we would just walk over and play. But you brought in, I'd already done EST back in 1979. And so we immediately, once I found out he was so involved, we immediately just like gelled. We had this really strong connection. And I loved getting phone calls with you, hanging out with you, bringing, you'd already spent a ton of time bringing the landmark distinctions onto the tennis court, so he was sharing those things with me, and transformed my game so it was less frustrating because I was so much less confident on the tennis court than Ed was. See, I want to give you appreciation for all the wonderful phone calls I've gotten where you would call me up and just say, it was like a 10-second phone call. It was like, Spence, it's Ed, you got to see this movie, Gladiator. Love you, bye. And I would be on the phone like, Okay, cool. That was great. You know,
Yeah.
and,
Eventually, I would tell people that if they didn't like it, I'd give them their money back.
yeah.
People thought that was really funny.
Yeah. So, Ed was, you know, I'd always love my little, you know, when I get a call from Ed, I'd love my little voicemails and always listen to them. Because usually there was gold in there, you know, some
Yeah.
sort of, you know, a quick gift from you. Went off into Miracle Love. Did you do Miracle Love?
I did. I tried not to, I couldn't help it.
So we
I've taken every course I've ever heard of.
Yeah, okay. Well, that makes sense. So, yeah, that's right. You were involved with the Miracle Love group.
And that is kind of what we're here for, is to kind of point out that we say that we're going to do something like lose weight, and we don't. So let's go ahead and do those things before we die that we can do. Johnny's playing golf now, so.
Hey, Ross. Hey. It seems weird having a face staring up at me out of the screen that I'm actually talking to. Ed and I have a very checkered, I think, history of knowing each other. And I've received many of those little phone calls of, hey, I got a movie you got to see, or here's a book you need to read. And,
Right.
you know, some of them I do and some of them I don't. But like I said earlier, the book I count really close to me is a book called Finite and Infinite Games. And probably one of the best books I ever read. And Ed, he had a whole box full of them. He was just passing them out to everybody. So I got two and gave it to a friend.
Who's the author?
James Cars.
James Cars.
He he's a scholar of religion. And, but he has a completely different way of looking at things, you know, that would go along with knowing Ed.
Yeah, so, you know, I've had all of those things. Plus, we've been partners in business together. We did a seminar ourselves. We did a couple of them here in Austin that were weekend-long seminars on sex and intimacy, talking to people about their relationship with those things. And I can't really say for sure how successful it was, but I ended up getting married out of it and having a kid. So I count that as pretty successful for me. And the thing I grant most profoundly to my experience with Ed is the people and the ideas sometimes, or teachings that he put me in touch with that maybe I wouldn't have been otherwise. Like he invited me to a Course in Miracles thing that was put on by two Course in Miracle doctors or something that really knew what they were doing, you know, in discussing this course. And it was really great. You know? And I had spent my whole life growing up under a fundamentalist, so I was pretty familiar with all the stuff that they talk about in the Course in Miracles. And I honestly, knowing everything that Jesus said, I could never find anything in A Course in Miracles that disagreed with it. And I think through him I came to realize that, and it was really neat too, that it doesn't matter how many people out there love you. It means zero. You know, that's the ego that worries about, you know, how many people love me, how many people like me, or do I need to be liked, or do I need to be loved? Doesn't matter. Well, all that really matters is how many people you have to love. How they feel about you doesn't matter. So I've had that same feeling with you, Ed. There have been, you know, when we were together in the beginning and, you know, being excited about the seminar that we were creating together and enrolling people into it and all that kind of thing, we were really having fun. And I think Ed has been a significant contribution to my life. I think you have. But you know, I'm not sure my life means anything. And I don't care. I used to care, but I don't anymore. You know?
One thing I remember about Werner Erhard is he would describe a couple where one of the people would say, I love you, and then they'd cup their hand over their ear waiting for them to say, I love you too.
Yeah.
And that's where the difficulty comes. You're like, if you love somebody, just love them. They don't need to love you back.
Yeah, exactly.
That's where.
The opportunity to love somebody is the biggest gift in the world,
Definitely.
you know, to love somebody up close and in person. Your turn, huh?
Okay. Can it be my turn now?
I don't know you.
Yeah. I was gonna need to go to your.
Where you
rock.
come from.
If you wanna go, you should go,
Okay.
darling.
Well,
Darn.
I've got a good story about meeting Ed. It's
Yeah.
really good. It was 2013, summer of 2013, and I was living in Austin, and I was running a popsicle company with one of my best friends just for the summer, just for some extra money. And she insisted that day that we go to Whole Foods to get our ingredients. We get all of our supplies or whatever and then go to the checkout line. And she's waiting, you know, I've already had my coffee, it's the middle of the day, but for some reason I was unbelievably compelled to go to the coffee bar line at Whole Foods. And I'm like looking at the menu and I'm like, what, am I just gonna get a chai? Like, what am I doing here? And then behind me I hear, nice nose. And I turn around and it was none other than Ed Epperson. And I turned around, I was like, what, excuse me? And it's like this, you know, older man with sparkling blue eyes. And he's like, yeah, you heard me right. Nice nose. It reminds me of my second wife's. And it was like, okay, all right, man. Cool, great. And then I just instantly felt such a connection, a profound connection with just the energy that Ed was bringing to the table. I was immediately just wanted to buy the guy a coffee, and I got to the front and I was like, whatever he's having, I got it, or something. And then, and he had his own mug, because he always brought his own mug to the coffee shops, and gets his refill. And then he was like, hey, do you want to come back to my table and see some photographs? And I was like, sure, why not? This feels good so far. Oh, but the other thing he said that I forgot, after the nice nose comment, I was like, okay, taking that in. And then he said, have you ever heard of the word ontology? And I was like, no, what does that mean? And he said, it's the experience of doing what you're doing while you're doing it. And I was like, oh, okay, I like that too. That sounds pretty good too. So then he's like, come back to my table. So we go back to the table. He has a hot pink JanSport backpack with 2 tennis rackets in it. And we sit down, and I'm just like, who is this guy? I'm just totally enraptured. And he takes out this photo album, and he just starts flipping through all the photos. And he's like, these are my kids. This was me as a kid. This was me running my bazillionth marathon. And I'm looking at this guy, and his eyes are like sparkling out of his head, and I'm like, what the fuck is going on right now? Like, am I like in another dimension all of a sudden? And I was just so compelled and just so like impressed, and I knew that something special was happening. And so I'm like I'm looking at pictures of Mary when they got married, and I'm like already in, you know, I'm like, tell me more. And then I realized that my business partner is waiting for me in the parking lot, and it's like, where the fuck are you? And she's like calling and texting me, trying to get me to come out. But the last she heard, I was just going to get a coffee. And then 25 minutes later, I'm like in this like intense conversation. And so then I was like, oh shit, okay, I gotta go. Do you have an email? Can I email you? And he was like, no, I don't do that. And I was like, cool, even cooler. You know, like totally not what I'm used to, but I'm down for this. And so then he took out a business card and wrote his phone number on it. And he was like, give me a call. And you should, you know, come to this thing sometime. And he was referring to Landmark. But I didn't know that at the time. And so, you know, I left and I got up and I was like, bye. And I'm pretty sure maybe we hugged. And I got to the parking lot and I got into the car and I immediately started sobbing. And I just knew that something profound had taken place. And I didn't realize what this person would do. And I realized at that moment that I was becoming so emotional because I had lost my grandfather pretty recently, and he was more like a father to me and a mentor. And that it was as if, you know, Ed had just kind of stepped in and taken that place for me, but in an even more open-minded way, which was really exceptional and what I needed at the time. Thank you. And so then, you know, my friend is just like, what the are you okay? You know, like what just happened? The last time I saw you, you went off to get coffee, and now you're sobbing about this person you just met.
Were
You
you
know.
being molested?
Exactly. Like, was there a trauma that just occurred in the last 20 minutes? But I knew that there had been a shift of some sort. And so then the story gets weirder because you know, I was like very taken by meeting Ed, and then I was like, and that just sort of became like one special thing that had happened. You know, I was like, that guy was cool. Maybe I'll never see him again. Maybe I'll call him. Maybe whatever. You know, I had no real plan. And then about a month went by, and I hadn't called you yet. And then I woke up one morning and I was like, I have to call this guy. Like that was so impactful for me that I think I really do need this person in my life. And I called you, and you said, great, good to hear from you. Why don't you come to this Tuesday night event? And I was like, okay. You know, and I had never heard the Landmark Forum. And I went to the forum night, and I heard all these people talking about their experiences, and I was just like, this is special. I like this. I think I want to do this. And then it took you a while to get me signed up, I think, because I was still, even with all these miraculous weird things happening, I was still resistant because I was really broke. And so Ed eventually paid for me, and I eventually paid you back for that one. And that was big, because I don't know that I would have done it if you hadn't offered that to me. So thank you for that. And then I did the forum, and it completely changed my life. And by the end, you know, I remember the Tuesday night of my graduation, you were there, and I was speaking or something in front of everybody, and you were wearing a Hawaiian shirt, which I appreciated. It was fun. You know, you're a fun guy. You're a fun guy. And I remember thanking you and just saying, I really appreciate that you led me here, because this was so profound. And then a month later, I decided to create the possibility of the thing that I had been, you know, not doing for so long, which was to make a film that I wanted to do. And I'd studied film, and I, you know, wanted to get back to it, but I had been like, oh, I can't do that. And then after the forum, I was like, I can do whatever the fuck I want, and I'm totally gonna do this now. And so then I was like, I want to go to Mexico, and I want to talk about women, and I want to talk about food culture. And then the miracle was that I found this woman on the internet, and then an hour later went to book people. Her name's Diana Kennedy. You know, she ultimately became the subject of the film that I just spent 6 years working on. And it just premiered at South by Southwest, and Ed and Mary came to see it. And it was really cool.
They put my name in the credits.
And I put your name in the credits because you more than deserved that. But I honestly feel that, you know, this was the greatest trajectory that I've had thus far in my life, the most incredible project, the thing that has now made me who I will continue to be. I'm just like overwhelmed with gratitude.
I might remind us that the word sharing is the key word in the landmark work. You know, a handshake or a hug, you know, it really represents what it means to share. And so Elizabeth is sharing her cinematic work, and I was sharing my idea of noses, and on and on and on. You know,
Yeah.
we're born, one thing leads to another, and then we die. Raj, what do you want to talk about?
I was at Casa de Luz just getting food, and Ed comes up to me and tells me I need a coach, and and he's it. That's the perception I have of the beginning of our relationship. And that I was totally down for that. And that was almost, gosh, it's probably going near 20 years that I've known you, Ed. And I still, this long, 2019, I feel like it's going to take me a while to actually fully be ready for everything that you've brought to my life. So, I have notes everywhere. I have a long list of all the things that you've recommended and ideas that you've shared with me. Some of them I've acted on, like John was saying. It took me a couple of years to see Buck, but I'm sure glad I finally did. But I think overall, what I've been so blessed by is a couple things. I refer to you all the time about how this perception you have of aging, and how what typically happens is that people pull things away from their life, and eventually they're just sitting there in their rocking chair watching TV, and that's their life. And how you intentionally would continue to add things to your life, that you didn't even start riding a motorcycle till your 60s, and that you go to Barton Springs and watch some guy do a trick off the diving board, and you figure out how to do it, and you ask him, and so that has been a blessing for me and other people. It's just like, be aware of what you're cutting yourself off from, and how you're saying no to things in your life. To be real, to be authentic. I remember when we first met, you were very much in promoting Brad Blanton and radical honesty, and just that concept blew my mind. Dude, to just go, here's what's present for me. Here's what's real. Here's how I see you, and I see the world, and I see things, and we're just so unwilling as a culture to call it like it is.
Yeah.
And be real. And so it's like, what's real is that we go home and jack off, and we don't want to talk about it, and we don't even want to admit it. So I think having those conversations, the willingness to confront what we are as human beings, and what we feel like, how we feel funky and guilty about that, and all those things. Those are the things that we need to bring to awareness. And so, like that, you've just been this constant guide for me in that. I like to check myself against your willingness to be authentic, to be honest, and to confront the situation, and bring that honesty and bring that authenticity into the moment, into the relationship you're having with whoever the hell's in front of
Thank you, Rod. I'm remembering something where there's an interview between a person in New York who's in the stage business, the show business, and they're talking to Robert Redford, and they ask him what his favorite word is, his favorite curse word, his least favorite word, his least favorite job. And the word that I'm thinking about is the word appropriate. A word that hasn't been used, pointed at me for a long time, is the word appropriate. So I don't honor.
Speak to you, but I was driving down, I think it was Congress, and it was during one of the bike rallies, and it's been a few years back, but there were maybe 30 Harleys, and going down the road, blah, 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 with all the noise and everything, and right in the middle of them was Ed on a Vespa.
Oh, that's amazing.
And I cracked up, wow. Like I started thinking, would I do that? No.
Thanks for being here, Spencer and Johnny and Elizabeth.